Welcome into the latest Day After podcast. I'm Tommy Ashley. This is Buck Sanders in the middle. Jason Staples on the right. We are sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Later than normal today, but I figured since it's the 33rd NFL team, we might as well do it right at NFL kickoff. 1 o'clock. Shout out to the 100 people that are in here already joining us. If you're watching this live, great. Get in the chat. You guys are already burning it up. If you're watching this later, get on the message boards at Inside Carolina. If you're not a member of Inside Carolina, you can join up for very cheap and get all the premium content. There will be a plenty this week. Buck, as I always do, I defer to you to give me your opening thoughts. Carolina loses in Orlando 34-9. What you got?
My opening thought is I'd just as soon you pass to Jason first for this game.
We'll pass. Are we gonna pass? I thought I'll run to Jason.
Well,
yeah, I was
maybe we'll complete one. Who knows? The thing, obviously, that's on everybody's mind, and what is the most concerning from this game, and there's plenty to be concerned about all the way around, pretty much. But the major thing is obviously the offense. The offense just cannot get untracked. They did okay against Richmond. They did semi-okay against Charlotte. They did not do well against TCU. And in this fourth game, the offense basically laid an egg against UCF, which I do not think is the example that we always reach for, the 85 Bears. So that's the problem, that North Carolina does not have an offense that is, going to be able to negotiate an ACC football season. If you have that big of a delta between what you have and what everybody else has, it's not going to be pretty. And UCF is sort of, if you were to look at offensively a bell curve of ACC teams, they'd be a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right of the top of the bell curve. So the teams that we're going to meet are in that area, and that's not going to be great for North Carolina because they're sort of representative of what's left on our schedule. Where to go from here, who knows? But it's not just a quarterback problem. It is partially a quarterback problem, but the quarterback problem may extend deeper than Gio Lopez. So are there any answers for this season? We don't know. And picture doesn't look particularly bright at this point.
Jason, I expected them to lose to TCU. How they lost was a flag. But I did not talk to one TCU fan that did not think they were going to whip Carolina. The opposite was true for UCF. I talked to UCF folks. They're in the same boat. They didn't know what their team had. Several in the couple of days we were there in Orlando before, like, take it easy on us, all this kind of talk or whatever. They didn't think, and they don't think they have a great team or a really good team. But here's what I want to start with you, and then you can get into what you want to talk about. All the talk about maybe they were holding something back on offense.
We tried to tell people they weren't holding stuff back.
I kept hearing it. They're telling me they're holding things back and they're going to unleash Lopez or do this or that. Jason, just opening thoughts here, and let's get into the weeds.
Well, I mean, my first thought on watching that game was that much more appreciation of how great Tom Brady was. I mean, Brady, he has a very strong argument to be, the greatest of all time as far as quarterbacks. Now, I think of all time is a hard thing, because different eras you can't really compare. But, certainly the greatest quarterback of his era. And if nothing else, I think the first 4 weeks of this season have only reinforced how great I think Tom Brady was. Because, I mean, that guy, let's think about this. who was Tom Brady's offensive coordinator first when he was having success with the New England Patriots?
I couldn't tell you.
Charlie Weiss.
Oh, yes.
And then
The great Charlie Weiss.
Yes, and Charlie Weiss took the success that he had with Tom Brady offensively and parlayed that into one of the biggest, I think at the time it was the biggest coaching contracts ever given out by a university at Notre Dame, where he guaranteed that they would have a decided schematic advantage and that they would be an NFL offense and would just have all the advantages against all the college teams. And then they got the brakes beaten off of them long enough, and he finally got fired. And you know what he really lacked at Notre Dame? That that made him look so good with the Patriots?
Some quarterback named Brady.
Tom Brady. And then, the next string of offensive coordinators all had great success with Brady. And they all went on to go coach somewhere else, and all of them did really poorly. Yeah, I'm seeing somebody say Cam Sexton whipped Charlie Weiss, right? Cam Sexton. And then all those coordinators for the Patriots, they go on and they get offensive coordinators get hired to coach NFL, their NFL head coaches. They go on elsewhere. They go to other NFL teams as coordinators, and none of them are able to replicate anywhere close to the success that they had. I mean, they're all busted, and you're like, well, geez, what happened? Tom Brady seems like, and then they go back and they get hired back to the Patriots, and boy, they look really good. And, the defense that we've seen so far from North Carolina has actually been decent. Now, they weren't great yesterday, but they weren't bad, right? But on the offensive side, it's starting to really look like, the thing that North Carolina really needs in order for Bill Belichick to have success in North Carolina is he needs Tom Brady to come on board. Because what they're putting on the field offensively right now, what they're trying to do, and look, I know a bunch of people are going to blame Kitchens, and I can tell you right now, the Belichick camp, they will be more than happy to use Kitchens as a fall guy on all this. Let's be honest. That is 100% the way that this is going to get set up with how this offense is going. Freddie Kitchens will be the fall guy. He's going to be the guy everybody blames. But you cannot tell me that Kitchens is not doing what Bill Belichick wants him to do and what they want to do offensively. Freddie Kitchens isn't who selected Gio Lopez out of the transfer portal either, and paid, what was it, $900,000 for this year, I believe was the number we got. And it's a 2-year deal. Freddie Kitchens isn't who made that decision. So at a certain point, the buck does go to the top. And we've talked about this with every coach at Carolina since we've been doing this. But the buck goes to the top. And, at the end of the day, what they've got on offense is the reason it's disjointed and the reason it's bad is that they don't have a trigger man that is really ready to be an eraser back there like a Drake May or a Sam Howell. And what they hung their hat on is we're going to build a physical punch in the mouth offense without the pieces to run a physical punch in the mouth offense. And we're going to expect it to have success because, we're coaching it. And I'm sorry, at a certain point, yeah, you coached in the NFL. And this is what a lot of NFL people and a bunch of college people were saying when when Belichick took this job, is they better be careful not to be arrogant, just thinking that because they came from the NFL that they're going to come down and be able to out scheme and out wisdom all of these lowly college coaches and so on, just because they're NFL guys and they're going to do things the NFL way. Because it doesn't work that way. In college, you better have players. And if you don't have the players, you better get real creative and you better find ways to get one advantage over here, over there. And what do I not see? I don't see that. I don't see them saying, okay, look, we got 2 players on offense. We got Jordan Shipp, we got Chris Culliver. What can we do to creatively make sure that guy touches the ball 12 times and that guy touches the ball 8 times per game, and just see what we can do with that and try to get the quarterback on the edge other than that. But bottom line is, what I'm seeing offensively, they don't have an identity, because the identity that they leaned into, they don't have the personnel for. And they've not really adjusted to that.
What's amazing to me, somebody mentioned in chat, I watch other teams with not great talent. Memphis is getting brought up a lot in the chat. They scored 32 points. Buck,
Memphis
that's the
has
thing.
more talent than North Carolina on offense.
Yeah, but they also do it creatively. What's frustrating for me watching it is why does every other college football team that I watch, why are they able to get guys in space on the edge over and over and over again? What did UCF do? They just threw the ball out on the flat over and over and over again. Buck, in your column, you referenced the defense. Interior defensive line and the linebackers didn't appear much on the stat sheet because the corners and the safeties were having to make the tackles. But back to the offensive side, Buck, your thoughts on that? Because I 100% believe that Kitchens is going to get the heat. He deserves some. When he was hired, when he was hired, we all said, and a lot of people said, I don't know about that one. But your take here, you've watched a lot of ball, and I don't know if it's been more displeasing to the eye than what we continue to see rolled out there. And it's game 4. It's not game 1. It's not even game 2. It's game 4, and it's the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, Tommy, I think that's a very pressing and interesting question to ask and to follow up on. I think that Mac Brown did something that Bill Belichick did not do, and he didn't do it because Belichick did not know what he did not know, and Mac Brown knew that he did not know all there was to know about modern college offenses. So what he did was run out and hire somebody that does know a lot about modern college defenses. Phil Longo, put him in charge of the offense and say, produce me a good offense. That's the old story about in the military about you get asked a question on the officer's exam. You're on this road. There's a wall across it. You're leading a regiment with some artillery pieces. And so how do you get past that roadblock? And there's a variety of ways you can answer that, but the best answer is, and the one that gets the greatest marks is, you go, Sergeant Major, get the regiment over that wall. So delegating things to people that know what they're doing is, a leadership trait. And Belichick just did not go with an offensive coordinator that had success at this level. Freddie Kitchens has not had success in college as an offensive coordinator. And he was
didn't
an
have
offensive
success in the pros as an offensive coordinator either. Let's be honest.
Well, but what success he did have was not at college at all. So, you got to get the right people in the right places. As anybody running an organization will tell you, that's what the key to all of it is to get the right cogs in the right places so that the gears mesh and everything runs smoothly. Belichick looked at it and said, well, I know defense. I can fix the defense. Freddie's coached an offense in the NFL. Obviously, he can do it on the college level. So let's let Freddie be the offensive coordinator. And, that might be the way that decision went down. And maybe Bill is reconsidering that decision. And maybe, as you said, Tommy and Jason, you agreed that part of this is due to Freddie Kitchens, and part of it's due to this is what Belichick wants. He wants a conservative offense. He doesn't want an offense that puts up 75 plays a game on the regular. That's what Longo wanted to do. He wants an offense that's going to put up 55, 65 plays a game and hold the other offense to that same number of plays. So, there's a lot of moving pieces of this, but, the whole key to all of this, in my opinion, and has been for a very long time, and what has plagued North Carolina football for a very long time, is that they have never really gotten the idea of having complementary offense and defense on the field together. Have an offense that complements your defense and have a defense that complements your offense and fit all that into the personnel that's at your disposal, make smart decisions, and go with that. So that's how I see the woes of this offense, and whether or not anybody at Keenan Football Center sees it that way, we don't know. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And I want to jump in for a second. It's not just personnel at the offensive coordinator position. My impression, by the way, is that Belichick, when he first took the job, expected that a McDaniels or somebody like that would come with him at offensive coordinator, and that Kitchens was basically, well, he's been an offensive coordinator before. Once a few of the guys that he kind of expected might come down from the NFL with him didn't come, I think that's when Kitchens became the guy. That's been my impression from the jump. Now, that also brings up the question of, if you move on from Kitchens after this year, if Belichick decides to, Kitchens is the fall guy, we're going to move on from him, I'm going to bring somebody else in, who's willing to take that job?
Well, I don't think there would be a lack of applicants for the job. But, the thing about Belichick is he once hired Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to be co-offensive coordinators for the New England Patriots.
And that's what got
neither of whom had ever coached really on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, the candidate pool is going to be as deep and as wide as you can possibly imagine. And so I don't think that there'll be any lack of names that people will throw in that hat.
That's true, but the question is, will they be as ineffective as Patricia and Judge?
Probably so.
Right? And that's the concern there.
Right. It would just be a matter of Belichick, for North Carolina to move forward. He would just have to find fire in a bottle. He would have to find lightning in a bottle, and then hope for the best from there.
But the truth is,
go ahead.
You're still not having that success. You could bring in one of the best offensive coordinators out there, and with what they've gotten from Gio Lopez, and some of that I do think probably is coaching at this point, but with what they've gotten from Gio so far this season, they're not having a successful offense with that offensive line that they're running out there, with what they're getting from Gio and with what they're getting from their backs by and large. They're not going to have a lot of success. And, fact of the matter is they handpicked Gio Lopez, and they got him late, but they went out and they got him to bring in. But, Taven Jackson is a transfer that was on the portal, in the portal last year. He was in the portal when they first took the job. And Jackson is a guy I would have gone after for sure. He would have been on my list. They did not prioritize getting those players in. I mean, they said it. I'm not saying something that they have not actively said, that when in that first portal period, they were just filling out the roster. It's literally what Lombardi said. That's one of those things that, like, torture by the USSR could not have dragged that out of me if I was coaching or if I was a GM in college. You could not have dragged that truth out of me with torture for me to say, well, to be honest, in the first portal period, we weren't really doing a whole lot of evaluation and really worrying about getting the best guys in, in the period where the best players are in there and when you really have to hit it. We weren't really worried about that. We were just filling out the roster. Well, I mean, this is what it looks like when you do that. And, when you don't go out and make sure that you have the most important position in the game taken care of with a guy that can really, really play. And I don't want to pile on a guy right now. And he got banged up yesterday too. But I got a text from someone yesterday who, knows me from other things. And it turns out he said, "Oh man, hey man, it's been a bit. So Gio was the coach of my son's high school team. I cannot believe he is a Division I, let alone Power 5 quarterback." That's what he said. Now, we talked a little bit more, and he did have some nice things to say about Gio and his family, whatever, in that sense. But he was like, I'm surprised in terms of that. But that's the guy they went out and handpicked. And that was Lombardi, and that was, honestly, that was Lombardi's pick. But Belichick rubber stamps that. That's on them. If they can't get that piece fixed, the rest of the delegation is kind of a problem. So,
just a footnote there, Tommy, before you ask your next question. Jackson was not the guy that was designated as a starter at UCF coming out of fall camp. They started somebody else. They pulled him out of the portal, but after fall camp, they didn't judge him as the best quarterback on the roster. And
yeah, they brought in two portal quarterbacks, and he actually finished second initially.
Yeah.
But he would have been worlds better as a prospect to come in at Carolina to do what they wanted to do than what they wound up with. Again, I'm just trying to be honest here in terms of evaluation. And Tommy, you remember I got dragged for this in the summer when I said that. I was like, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that this is who they signed and they invested heavily in
to do what they were trying to do.
To do what they're trying to do, because if it had been me, I would have. If I was given that guy or that guy, I would have just kept Criswell on. If that's more or less the level of quarterback you're going for, keep Criswell on and get a spring out of him too, and you're probably going to be better off. I still stand by that. And that was a misevaluation. I think there's been some laziness, honestly, and some arrogance that has bitten them on the offensive side, and we're seeing the outcomes of that.
One of y'all got something loud going on in the background. We're talking to Buck Sanders and Jason Staples here on the day after. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. Get all your Carolina gear and swag in Chapel Hill on Franklin Street or online at Johnny T-Shirt. And like I mentioned earlier, if you're not a member of Inside Carolina Premium, get it. You get that 10% off your Johnny T-shirt as well. And they've got plenty of gear to suit all your Carolina needs, not just football, basketball, baseball, all the rest of the sports. And you can get it right there on Franklin Street, right beside campus, as you're in town for a game, an event, whatever you need. So here's the issue, Jason, and I'm going to come back to you, and Buck, you can follow too. Everybody talks about, well, they've got to get their people in, their players in, it's a rebuild and all that. To your point again, and we're not just talking about quarterback, they picked all of these guys. 70 guys that they brought in. It's not like when Mac Brown 1.0 was left with whatever roster Dick Crum had, or, Larry Fedora dealing with what was with, Bunning or Butch or whatever. They had the opportunity to get who they wanted or try to get who they wanted. And your last point there about the laziness factor, I'm not so sure that's not a bunch of it, but the concerning part about the fixing aspect of it, Jason, is the evaluation. You got to question some of the evaluation going on here, and that's probably the most disturbing part, because I do not blame a player for not being able to do what they can't do. I blame a coach for putting them in position to have to do something that they cannot do, and we've talked about that at plenty. But, Jason, that's the most worrisome thing to me is everybody says, well, we'll see what happens when he gets his guys in. And the high school recruiting class is going to be really good. But still, man, it's built on portals. And to your point, it's built on quarterbacks. But it's not just quarterbacks. You got to have all other guys. and they haven't shown to be able to really evaluate them as well, at least offensively.
Yeah, I mean, and now again, I want to be clear. There are, I think, some players on this offense. I mean, I think Jordan Shipp is a pretty good player.
Yeah,
I think Chris Culliver is a talented player.
they were there.
And they were there. They were already there. I think, I think Austin Blasky has, he's shown himself to be an above average offensive lineman that they retained. But the fact of the matter is they ran off their best offensive tackle from last year, who looks real good where he's playing right now at left tackle. And
Well, he did almost get a quarterback killed in one play I saw, but that happens.
Yeah, it happens, but he's been pretty good. They ran him off, and they replaced him with guys that were not as good. And we talked about that this offseason. It's like, well, you're kind of banking on being able to out-evaluate, and I'm not sure that you have that talent. Now, I don't want to catastrophize and say, like, this offensive line is below average. It is not. I'm seeing some people say Joe Montana couldn't have played behind this offensive line. Look, if you put Tom Brady behind this offensive line, North Carolina might be undefeated right now. I'm talking about pro Tom Brady.
I was going to say, like, not 45, 48-year-old Tom Brady.
No, but I'm talking about, like, you take prime Tom Brady and you put him back there and nobody touches him. And he's just audibling to wherever it's going to go, and he's going to get the ball out so fast and get it to whoever is going to be open in that context, that they're going to score 45 a game, because that's what that kind of quarterback can do. And at a certain point, you're the OC. You just get out of his dang way, and you just say, okay, look, we're going to go to the line of scrimmage with these few plays. You audible to what you want.
But let me jump in there. I don't think you have to have somebody that great to be able to have success. I mean, you mentioned
don't.
Jackson.
You don't. But I see people saying Joe Montana couldn't do it, and I'm saying, you get that kind of player. You put a Drake May back there, and they're probably doing fine.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
Taven Jackson, they got the ball out of his hands repeatedly, over and over and over and over.
But you have to call it differently for that too.
Yes.
Here's the thing with Jackson, for example. In this offense, this UCF offense, they threw 15 short passes. He completed 14 of those short passes. They got 167 yards or 167 yards after contact. North Carolina got 67 yards after contact, and I think they're right around 60% or less on short passes. Throwing a short pass is not what Lopez does well. I think he's under 60% throwing to his left, and about the same throwing in the center of the field, maybe a little better. And he has not thrown a single pass short right this year. If I'm an opposing defensive coordinator, I just vacate that area of the field and put a defender someplace else. So I think that's kind of how we have seen modern defenses develop. Throwing the deep ball is wonderful. Chicks love the long ball, right? I mean, you want to see that long pass in the quiver to be able to use. But the bread and butter play in the modern era of football is to throw the ball in space to somebody that can make the first person that tries to tackle him miss. If you can get that first person to miss, you're going to have a 7, 8, 9 yards per attempt number. And that's what it kind of takes in this day and age. You look at offenses across the nation, every single good offense there is out there is going to have more than 8 yards per attempt. And some of them have 9 or 10. So that's what it takes I think, to win today in college football. Is you don't have time to teach complicated double move routes to every receiver that's on your roster, but you can get a slant to them, over the, throw it to the center of the field and throw that slant and get a completion, and have that guy be aware it's your job to make that first person coming after you miss. And that's what's not happening at UNC. Is it, a pro offense is all well and good. That's fine, terrific. But to get the ball up and down the field in today's offenses, you've got to be able to do what I just talked about. And
Yep.
they're not doing that at UNC.
Yep. And the evidence of that is that when Max Johnson came in this game, they did score, which, it took 19 plays or whatever it was to dink and dunk down the field.
I think only about 12 or 13 of them was his. They counted
Right.
in that same drive. There was 8 or 9 from Gio.
Yeah. So, but if we're going to be very fair here, things didn't look all that different with Max at quarterback either.
Exactly right.
Right. So I don't want to pile on. I don't want to say this is just a matter of a single quarterback or whatever, because it's not. There's more of this is a conspiracy of suckage.
It's design of the offense to me. It's offensive design, I think.
Yeah.
Is
I
is
can't
out of
disagree with
step.
that. Well, and it's not just design, it's identity.
There is none.
Right. And the reason there is none is because the identity that you're doubling down on and that you're committing to is stuff you can't do.
Yep.
And if you're going to have a reasonable identity on offense, you have to start with, what is it that we can do well? And here's my question. What is it that North Carolina's offense, with the personnel that they have, with the potential stuff that they could do, what is it that they do, that they can do well, or that they could do well? We don't really know, because we haven't really seen them do anything well yet against anybody with a pulse. And even against the teams that didn't have a pulse, they weren't looking like world beaters on offense. So, this is, it's an office space. What would you say exactly that you do here? Right? What do you do well? Right? So
And if they find something they do well, they go away from it.
right.
Just
So
like down in the red zone in front of us.
so they're going to have to figure out, and that's really the thing. And we've said all along, all preseason, all through the first 4 weeks, it was going to take through UCF to really have a good sense of what this team is. We have a good sense of what this team is now. And defensively, it's better than I think we thought it would be. It's not great, but it's better than we thought it would be. Offensively, it's real bad. And they're going to have to figure out, they're going to have to find out soon, what is it that we can actually do well? That's what this whole week is going to have to be about. Is, can we find something that we can hang our hat on to build off of that and to have counters based on that? Like, find something that we can do well.
Looking at PFF, and again, I take it with a grain of salt a lot, but and this might be something we can talk about on Thursday, Jason, when we do a game plan for the bye week game plan. Gio has not completed a pass and only attempted 6 outside right at any depth other than behind the line of scrimmage. That's incredible to me. That's a third of the field not used and not taken out there. I don't know what that means. I don't know, but it is boggling to look at the stats. Nothing from the line of scrimmage to deep right has been completed by Carolina. All right, so where do we go? We've talked about the defense. I thought the defense, you can't look, boys, it was hot out there yesterday. And the defense in the first drive of the second half and the first drive of the game weren't good. They had opportunities to get off field, couldn't do it in either drive. But Buck, it's tough for me to look at the defense and say they stunk or they were bad, because it was a sauna and they were left out there to dry most of the game. So let's find some positive with the defense. I think there is some there. And I'll let you try to find it.
Absolutely. I think the things stood out to me, or if we're cherry picking stats to back up kind of what we saw, how they performed on third down was the exact same that UCF performed on third down against UNC's offense. as bad as UNC's offense is, and as functional and decent as UCF's offense is, North Carolina completed 5 of 13 third down situations. UCF converted 5 of 13. Exact same percentage. There were other things like that in the stat sheet that make it apparent that it's not just the defense that was the defense was terrible. They weren't terrible, and if they had had a little help from the offense in terms of keeping the ball on, in their possession for a little while, I know that it's not my favorite stat, and it's not Jason's favorite stat. Time of possession is basically meaningless unless you have a huge delta like 20 minutes to you've held the ball for 20 minutes, the other team had it 40. And they can just wear you out. And on a hot day like you're talking about, Tommy, that goes double. That if you keep your defense on the field for 2/3 of the game, you can't expect to win it on the 1/3 that's remaining to you to play. So, there are things that happen defensively. The offense handicapped them a little bit on defense, but the defense was not nearly as bad. I saw some good things from players out there. Will Hardy had a game of his life, and to me, I thought he played an exceptional game. And other players played well at times as well, but they were at best decent but inconsistent. And that blown coverage for a touchdown, passing touchdown, it exemplifies that not everybody was on the same page on that play. Somebody was off doing something they wasn't supposed to be doing instead of being where they needed to be. So there are things aren't perfect on the defensive side of the ball, as Jason alluded to, but it's not nearly as bad as the score indicates. I think the score makes the defense look worse than it actually was.
100%. 100%. And I will say, few guys deserve their flowers on defense in terms of playing not just well, but also playing really hard. This was a game, by the way, I said in pregame Marcus Allen needed to play really well. Marcus Allen played well in this game. If you go back and you take a look,
they used
Marcus
him in
Allen
run
played
support a little bit more in this game, I thought.
Yeah.
That
yeah. He handled it well.
Keep going, Jason. Who else? Marcus Allen.
Melkart played well. Abujade Melkart Abujade played well. I thought the linebackers on the whole played well. Leroy Jackson and Vilbert both played well on the whole. Those guys all played well. There were some other guys that could have played a little better. I think a couple of the defensive tackles were hit and miss, but especially as it got hotter and later, and in some late in drives on goal line, they got pushed around a couple times where it's like, okay, I can see they're starting to get tired a little bit. But I thought by and large the defense played pretty well, and the guys that I just singled out, those are all guys that I would say, they played well enough that with good offensive play, you might win that game. They played well enough to potentially win a game. Defensively, I thought this was fine. It's just not good enough. If, one of the other thoughts I had in watching this is the offense is sort of what, Greg Barnes might hope for, or, Pat Narduzzi's ideal kind of offensive game. The problem is that, there's no defense in the world that's good enough for that offense to, manage to win, 13-10 or something like that. So, but no, defensively, they're better than I thought they'd be at this stage of the season, even accounting for, kind of the Belichick curve that we all kind of figured we were grading on. Defensively, they're pretty good. They're, it's a defense that with competent offense on the opposite side, you can win with. Are you going to win 10 games with that group? Probably not. But this is, we have to adjust expectations right now, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
look ahead at the schedule, Tommy. I'm going to go ahead and turn into your role here. I want to ask you. Look ahead at the schedule right now, 12-0, Tommy. How many wins do you see on North Carolina's schedule remaining, given what we know now? So through 4 games, we kind of know we have an identity of this team to some degree. How many wins do you see left on the schedule?
I think that everything's a toss-up. Everything's a toss-up at best. I mean, people are saying Stanford. Stanford's look like they've had a pulse at times. If I had to pick one, probably that. I haven't watched much of Wake Forest, but Carolina's always had struggles with Wake Forest for whatever reason. Duke, no. State, no. Clemson, no.
Well, Clemson's interesting right now.
Yeah, but that's going to be a get-right game if Carolina doesn't figure something out. I mean, I could see it being 24-6 at half, Clemson, and end up being 45 to 9 or 13. Who else? Cal. Cal out there.
That quarterback now.
Yeah, and Syracuse. I mean, these are all games where we penciled in wins based on what we thought we knew, and clearly we didn't know. That's, to your point, Buck, you can talk about this. The offense, circle back to where we were, the offense has changed the entire outlook for everything. Now that we're 4 games in, it's like we know what they are. We know exactly who they are.
If you're scoring 9 points against UCF, how many are you going to get on Clemson? Even as bad as Clemson's been. And Cal's got that offense. Virginia's scoring 42 points a game right now?
Yeah. That could
That's
be
your
our
next 3
debate.
games.
Thinking of Clemson, the only team in the ACC, I think, whose quarterback ranking was worse than Lopez's yesterday was Klubnik. And I don't know what the explanation there is. And they got one of the Riley boys as their OC, right? And isn't that they have directing the offense?
Yep. And it looks terrible. Looks disjointed.
It does look terrible.
They can't run the football. They can't run it, and then they can't pass protect. And Klubnik looks terrible. They're in bad shape on offense.
There are certain things.
They've got talent. They've got some skill talent on that team that is impressive, though. It's just not playing. It looks kind of like a certain team last year.
If you think about North Carolina, though, I think that they found a piece for the offense, Damon June, who is an asset we weren't counting on coming into this year. Even against UCF, he still was the leading rusher by a wide margin, especially yards per carry. He got 5. I don't think anybody else got over 3. I think Hall maybe got 3.2, something like that.
Yep.
And I thought Hall, he's not going to break any long runs. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle to him, but he got some tough yards, in close yard situations. So they got some pieces, as Jason alluded to. I do think I agree with him. Ship and Culliver, they're ACC caliber wide receivers, especially if you had somebody that could get them the ball. Damon June, I think he's better than I didn't even know hardly he was on the team until I first heard his name. When he started running the ball at Charlotte, I think. So, and here's an interesting observation. A true freshman from Florida, Shenard Clower, led the UNC football team in receptions yesterday. Honestly, I had to look up the football roster to find out who he was when I saw 85 on the field. I was not immediately familiar to me. 85 coming out on the field and catching passes. Weighs like $165. I don't know why Green was playing, and Green normally plays slot, I think. But Clower got a lot of the run. I guess that that accounts for the concept of finding people in practice that are playing well and getting them, some playing time. Somebody said that he's slow and small. That may even be true, but from what his reputation is from Florida and elsewhere, is that he is very smart and has a lot of flexibility in the positions that he plays. As far as I think he started out last year maybe at the quarterback position on the high school team he was on. But that's crazy to me that you're in the fourth game of the year and your leading receiver is a guy nobody's ever heard of before, basically. So how does that happen?
It's a great question, Buck, and that's been an interesting dynamic with this staff. I'm gonna go through the message board thread because I posted it yesterday or whenever I did put it up there, and there's a lot of questions. Let's make sure we've covered them. This should be a good one. First topic should be Freddie Kitchens. We've covered that. Is there anything left we need to say about that? I think
the feathers are off that turkey.
I think, yeah. Where are the offensive playmakers?
No fair stealing my expressions, Jason.
Yeah, really. There's more to get. There's more to steal. Where are the playmakers on offense? We've outlined that. I mean, Jason, you mentioned Culliver and Ship right out of the gate. Get those guys, get the ball in their hand 12 to 13 times a game, one way or another. If you have to turn around and hand it to them, how can so many smart people whiff on a quarterback evaluation? That's a good question. It's one question Belichick did answer in the press conference last night. He said it's not just one guy; it's 11 different people on offense doing a lot of not good things.
And I agree with him. I mean, I will say this about again. I was critical of Gio in our first segment. Some people are going to blame him for the interception that he had when he was throwing to Hood. As far as it looked to me, that looked like that was supposed to be a screen where Hood's coming flat down the line because you had two guys blocking on the inside. You can't run upfield then if you've got those guys blocking. So that's got to come straight down the line. And when Gio throws that means he's expecting him to come flat down the line and not be running upfield on a slant. And by running upfield into the slant, he brings the defender into there. That's an interception in the film room. That's probably assigned to the back. That's assigned to the receiver. Well, he's lined up as a receiver, Hood, which I have to wonder again. This is where I'm just looking at this and I'm going. I look at the roster, and when you go four wide, is it really the best thing that you can do to have one of your four wide receivers be Caleb back. Hood?
Yeah,
or to be, Benjamin Hall. Are those guys are those the best guys you got for that third or fourth wide receiver spot? I mean, this is the stuff that I'm just looking at and I'm like, I don't understand. It's it's how you are using the pieces that you have, because they do have some pieces to use, but that one not on Gio, and that's one where it's really easy to look at that and be like, why would he look left and then immediately fire it right? And, throw it right to a guy that's on the quarterback. Well, if this is the way that this normally works, where you have a little quick screen on the outside to the outside receiver, the guy that's lined up at the number one on the outside, a way that's a lot of times designed is you are supposed to look left, pump, and then come right back down the line. And the whole design is to get him on the tunnel right up the field, getting the defense to move left initially, and then all of a sudden you've got that guy coming from the right and you've got a chance to get a lane up there with the blocks from the inside guys. But if he doesn't run it right, the quarterback's out to dry. That's not on Gio. That's not having your offense prepared. That's on the player. That's also on the coaching staff for not having your offense prepared to know what to do there. And there's a whole heck of a lot of that.
That's why I said there's some discontent out there. I mean, you've got Alex Taylor, you've got Leacock, you've got Kobe Peso, or you've got Ship, you've got Culliver, you've got Shenard Clower now. You've got a whole host of guys that could be in that position. Let's go. How many screens can possibly call in one game? I don't think we even attempted more than one pass 25 yards down the field. No vertical passing. Jason, you can comment about that. If you don't have a vertical passing game, you can forget just about anything else, right?
Yeah, and again, there you some people will say, well, you can't block for vertical passing game if you can't, or if you can't block for 5-step drop out of the gun, you can't block for vertical passing game. I disagree. There've been multiple there. I can give you a whole host of plays from this weekend where you have a simple slot fade where you formationed to where you're going to get one-on-one and you ran the slot fade to a fast guy who ran by the slot corner. You can do it. It's just a matter of formationing and finding a matchup, get a fast guy matched up on that. And you can do some simple concepts where it's just pushing it downfield a little more. Some of that's available without having to take deep drops. And the one thing that the biggest positive that I had to say from Gio, aside from, his ability to use his legs, which he did which he did at his last spot, was that in the past he's shown the ability to throw the deep ball pretty well. So, that's when you're not actually giving him the option to do that very much, or he's not feeling comfortable enough to take those shots. That's hurting you, and teams are sitting on your running game.
Here's another way you can complete deep passes. Have a really good running game where you can move people off the ball and make them crowd the line of scrimmage, go play action. How many times have I seen that in my life? I don't even know. I can't even count them all. I would never be able to count them all. There's literally thousands where an offense that can really run the ball just pounds it, pulls the defense in to cover the in run support, goes play action, and all of a sudden it's 7. So that's another aspect of playing complementary football that's the way you do it in some cases. Now, they don't have the horses, I don't think, the studs on the offensive line to have that powerful running game that makes the play action game effective. If they don't have any respect for your running game, they're not going to worry about you, running the ball that much. And so they can just defend however they want to. They can put just as many people in the defensive secondary as they choose to. But that's one way that you could throw the deep ball and give your quarterback enough time to complete it. You just need to be able to do it. And North Carolina's not at that spot right now. I think that's where they want to head. I think that's what they want to be, is a team that can be a good play action football team offense. But that's not what they have right now.
Anything left, boys, before we get out of here? It's been an interesting day after, a little bit later in the afternoon than normal. I see a lot of folks commenting about what's going on in pro games. Think Drake May's thrown a touchdown pass for the Patriots. Jason, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I got a question for you guys. Another question for you guys.
All right.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, that they come out of the bye week and they lose to Clemson, and then they lose to Virginia and Cal. At what point this season do you pull the plug and you start playing Baker or Newkirk or both, trying to evaluate what you have there and really aiming for the next season? When do you make that move?
I don't think Clemson's the one to do it on, but I do think the games after that I think
if it gets to the point where you are no longer eligible for a bowl, if you've lost 7 games and you're not going to be able to go bowling, then that's a good opportunity to start working on what comes next and putting players in that you think can help you next year that haven't been able to help you so much this year.
I think that's too long. And I'll tell you, and I'll go against you for this reason. You've got a bye, then you have Clemson, and then you have another bye. So you will have 2 weeks between Clemson and, was that Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're going to make a massive change like that, you do it then, and you give the guys
Here's
2 weeks.
here's my fear about that process is that if you put a guy in for the Clemson game, before the Clemson game, and he has a horrible game. One of the things I've seen over and over and over, and so have both of you, is a quarterback who gets pushed into a situation like that before he's ready. And it scars him permanently. It happens. And I wouldn't take that risk with a quarterback I thought had a bright future playing college football. I would not put Bryce Baker or Newkirk out there that soon to have to deal with what he's going to have to deal with. We already know this offensive line pass blocking is their worst feature. They're not really good at protecting the passer. So if you throw a freshman out there who's not prepared and is going to have to play under fire, you might one time out of 100 get a guy who thrives with that. They jump in, they're ready, they take off with it, and they do great, and they go on and have a great career. You probably have a greater percentage chance that the guy you throw in there is going to get hammered and scarred for life. He'll be hearing footsteps in his sleep at night. So there's that problem. If you wait until after Game 7, there's 6 games remaining, you have less pressure on that guy. It's not up to him whether or not the rest of the team is denied a bowl game or not. The team can't look at him and say, if not for you, we would have gone bowling. They had to get you ready for next year, and that's the reason why we can't go to the whatever bowl. And believe it or not, those things are important to college players. So I think probably for the sake of, number one, not taking a risk of damaging a quarterback that has potential, and 2, once a bowl game is out of reach, nobody's being deprived of that postseason benefit. That's why I would say after the 7th game.
Noted. I don't think guys care about all that post-game stuff. They just want to win. They want to have fun trying to do it, and I don't see a lot of guys having fun trying to do it now. And we always say it's not the despair that gets you, it's the hope. So maybe you've got a point there. I'm going to get out of here. Spend the day after Buck Sanders. I'm going to close it with a quote that the man in the middle there authored, penned, typed, and is posted on the message boards right now, or posted on the site right now. Yesterday's 34-9 loss to Central Florida included several benchmarks for North Carolina's 2025 football season. 1/3 of Belichick's first regular season is over. The Tar Heels have completed their non-conference season. There may be others, but one safe conclusion is we can reach at this juncture is that the Tar Heels have a lot of work to do. One interesting comment by Belichick in the postgame as well, he said there may be some things they move off of and maybe some things they move towards. What are they going to be? We shall see. No availability this week from coaches or players as they're on by. Jason and myself and Greg will get together hopefully on Thursday to talk about it. Buck Sanders will have his weekly columns on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And always Inside Carolina will be kicking out the content about each and every sport and aspect of those sports that you can imagine. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt. Shout out to the close to 450 people that were here on a Sunday. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks, boys.